In today's video, we're going to be visiting the Brunswick Square Mall in East Brunswick, New Jersey. I get a lot of requests to cover this mall, and with recent developments concerning the future of this place, I thought it would be a good time to make a visit. We're going to start off by taking a walk around the JCPenney and taking in this unique 70s style architecture. In New Jersey, we still love going to the mall, but Brunswick Square is one that you don't hear people talk about too often. With two larger malls to the north, Menlo Park and Woodbridge Center, and the massive Freehold Raceway Mall to the south, Brunswick Square often gets overlooked. With only a single floor and two anchor spaces, this mall has undergone many changes throughout its history in order to remain a viable shopping destination. And in the near future, it will be undergoing redevelopment once again. So let's go see Brunswick Square Mall as it is now in 2025, before the inevitable changes occur to this mall. The Brunswick Square Mall began its life as a Bamberger's department store built by the Macy's Corporation in 1970. Development of the indoor portion of the mall began shortly after by the DeBartolo Company. The remaining portion of the mall opened in 1973 with a JCPenney as a second anchor and space for 80 stores. The mall featured live trees and water fountains, billing itself as a year-round tropical paradise. The mall saw its first major renovation in 1980, and in 1986 the Bamberger's was converted into a Macy's as the brand was phased out. In an attempt to stay competitive with other malls in the region, a major overhaul of Brunswick Square was proposed in 1989. A second floor would be added, with an additional 50 stores, movie theater, food court, and a massive fountain. However, this plan was met with resistance by local residents concerned about increased traffic in the area, and this stalled the plan. By 1996, DeBartolo was bought out by Simon, effectively killing any plans for this renovation to take place. In 2000, the mall underwent a much simpler renovation, with updates to the flooring and lighting, as well as the addition of a small food court area. Throughout the 2010s, several small additions to the mall were made, bringing in a Barnes & Noble, as well as several front-facing sit-down restaurants. And that brings us to where we are today, with Brunswick Square still struggling to hold on. In March of 2025, the mall was designated as a condemnation redevelopment area. Although the future plans are not explicitly clear, the mall will likely be redeveloped as a mixed-use residential property. The East Brunswick Mayor Brad Cohen has stated, "The mall will stay, just update it to something that works in 2025, not 1975. I guess we will find out what that means in the future." Let's take a look at this AMC movie theater up ahead here. This was originally a General Cinemas from when the mall first opened until 1993. It reopened as the Movies at Brunswick Square, and later in 1999, the theater expanded and reopened as a Mega Movies. The decor you see on these support columns are the last remaining elements of that movie chain. It used to have that busy, colorful late 90s design aesthetic. Here's an old picture I found of it, and just look at that. Why would you ever want to get rid of that? Over here was the concessions area for Mega Movies, and it had a Nathan's Famous hot dogs and a Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I noticed the entry from the mall to the movie theater was closed off. That's probably not helping the mall's foot traffic. But then again, people aren't really going to the movie theater too often nowadays either. Let's take a look at some of these arcade games. We have Jurassic Park, Terminator. I see these pretty often at malls and other places. And just over here, we have some of your standard crane games. And then all the way in the corner by itself, we have this Pac-Man cabinet. And over here, we have a throwback to the early 2000s, a Hollister that still has the porch area in the front of it. I believe most Hollister stores have gotten rid of this feature. You don't see it in any of the newer stores. And it's still the same inside. Has all these cool studio lights above it. Very old school features in here. Now, when I was a teenager hanging out at the mall, I wasn't shopping at Hollister. I was more of a Hot Topic, Spencer Gifts kind of guy. But it's still really cool just to see one of these stores that hasn't been updated yet. Here we have a Claire's that I believe closed fairly recently, but it had the old school late 90s, early 2000s storefront. Here's what it used to look like. And over here we have a GameStop that you can see was an old EB Games, has that cool pop-out display window in the front of it. It seems that there are still a lot of these out there in some of the older malls that are still around. I saw this store called Vintage Vault inside the old Zoomies, and I had to check it out, but I was a little disappointed to find that it was mostly sports apparel and not retro-style clothing. But if you like that sort of thing, check them out. This spot was a Wok Express, which briefly reopened as a Mexican restaurant. I gotta tell you, there was a really bad smell coming from out of here. This was a pizzeria, and again, it closed and reopened as a different restaurant, only to close shortly afterwards. Look at that creepy liminal space in there. This was what it looked like just a few years ago. Check out those cool old-style benches. I just love those. Down at the end here is an old Red Robin, and this closed in June of 2025 as part of the mall's redevelopment plan. This mall does not have a full food court. It has this small food section here, but it only consists of an Auntie Anne's and a Charlie's cheesesteaks. But something caught my eye here. They have old neon lights up above the Auntie Anne's. Those are definitely neon tubes and not LEDs. Now let's make our way down to the Macy's. Over here we have one of these custom t-shirt shops, and usually when stores like this start opening up in a mall, it's a sign that the mall's not doing well, because you just don't see these in malls that are doing well. We can just see lots of vacancies all throughout this mall. Earlier this year, mall management informed a lot of these stores that their leases would not be renewed as part of the mall's redevelopment plan. I remember coming here just 2 or 3 years ago, and most of these spaces were still occupied. Jimmy Jazz is still open. Now that's a store you just don't see in too many malls anymore. Now this space is the former Old Navy. Let's get a look in here. Imagine how creepy it would be if I looked into one of these stores and I saw somebody standing there looking back at me. That would be a good idea for a Dead Mall horror movie, in fact. So this is pretty cool. This is actually a Nerf gun arena. So you can come here and have Nerf gun battles. I would have loved to have done this when I was a little kid. I wish this was around, but I guess it just wasn't a thing. And I think this is still open, it's just closed right now. But how cool is this? This is so much fun. So here we have a crane game where you can find a key in one of these golden eggs. I'm not sure what you get if you find a key, but I bet you there's no key in there. This is a cool looking old store. I don't readily recognize it. It was Wet Seal, but it's definitely like an old school, early 2000s, 90s type store. Here we have another closed store. Oh, it's Famous Footwear. Oh, we have an old school Champs here. Well, look, with all the chrome and mirrored surfaces. Let's see what's left of this one. Oh, wow. Look at that. And so we're coming up here on the Macy's, and they have actually closed the mall entrance to the Macy's. Does not seem like a good strategy, and it's definitely going to hurt this mall. It's probably going to be one of the final nails in the coffin for this mall. And there's no set plans to redevelop this mall yet, but they do intend to redevelop it. So I don't know what's going to happen, if maybe the Macy's will stay, but it's very strange to see that. So if I want to go into this Macy's, I actually have to leave the mall and walk back in. I wouldn't be surprised if Macy's intends to close this location. Not really sure what the deal is, but it's interesting. Alrighty, walking around the outside of the mall to get inside the Macy's. Okay, so this is a Macy's clearance store. And this is a former Bamberger's department store in this old building here. Let's go see what's inside. Well, that certainly doesn't look too good.
It works good.
From what I've been able to gather is that this building has already been sold and that Macy's is renting the space from the new owner to use it as a clearance center. They intend to keep it open until 2027, at which point it will be redeveloped. Into what exactly, no one really knows yet. But as I mentioned before, this was built in the 70's and it was formerly a Bamberger's, so let's walk around and see if we can see some old school design features that are still remaining in here. Like right here, we have this old jewelry counter. I wonder how long that's been there for. Maybe since sometime in the 90s? Really hard to say, but it's definitely cool. And back here we have these shoe racks, just very plain utilitarian shelving. Almost looks like something you'd see at a Home Depot. But we can go around the corner here, and we can see all these panels up here above what used to be clothing racks. And these just have a very interesting look to them. I'm not sure if they serve any real purpose, but they definitely look like something you'd see in an old school mall department store. And here we can see the last remnants of an old courtesy phone. That's definitely something you don't need at all nowadays. When I was growing up, Macy's was sort of seen as like a luxurious place. It wasn't high-end, it was sort of like the middle-class fancy place. And seeing it like this, it's just very strange. I think in today's retail climate, downsizing stores is just something that Macy's is going to have to do to stay alive. Keeping these stores with such a large retail footprint, it's just not cost-effective anymore. And here we have more of these panels on the wall that just look like they're straight out of the 70's. And some old track lighting, very old school, very cool to see. And just look at the pattern on this. Just very interesting. This kind of reminds me of the times I'd be shopping at a store like Macy's when I was a little kid, and then I'd just kind of wander away from my mom and just start exploring the store myself, and then I would get yelled at. And just take a look at these mirrored panels here. They're just so beautiful, and again, it's another old school department store feature. It's definitely not something you'll ever see in a store nowadays, and it's just kind of cool to come here and check it out for what it's worth. Just kind of an odd assortment of items here in this store. And back here it looks like we just have some random housewares tucked into this weird little cubbyhole area. And this is really cool. Just look at this fixture here. Doesn't that just scream 70's? I don't think it serves any real purpose, but it's awesome to look at. And I thought this was really neat. These wooden dividers with the spheres inside of them. I remember back in the 90s, a lot of stores incorporated geometric shapes into their design schemes, and this definitely reminds me of that. Alright, well, I need to find my way back into the mall. Won't be going this way, of course. I guess I'm gonna have to go back outside and go around. Here we have the closed Red Robin and Bar Louie, and these restaurants closed in March of 2025. Employees at Bar Louie were given no advance knowledge that the place was closing and that they would be losing their jobs. Employees showed up that day expecting to work a shift, only to find the doors locked and the place permanently closed. In my opinion, that's a really awful thing to do to working people, and it just shows the disconnect between corporate America and the people actually working in their businesses. Alrighty, back inside the mall, and let's make our way back through this dead wing here. I have to say, this is a very bland-looking mall. Whatever interesting features this mall may have had in the past have all been removed. It's just very sad and unappealing in here. I don't remember what this store was originally, but up until recently they had a little pop-up arcade in here featuring claw machines and stuff like that. Here's one of my old photos of it from just about a year ago. Just one of these little pop-up claw machine arcades that seem to be everywhere nowadays. So other than that small pseudo food court area, the only other food place in this mall is the Panera Bread right here. I think not having good food options really does hurt the mall, because people come to malls to eat, shop, it's part of the whole experience. Over here they had this really cool shop selling tabletop games and model kits. It's called IRL Games, so shout out to them. I really enjoy seeing small businesses like this, especially in malls. I used to make Gundam model kits. I don't really do it anymore, but I think this stuff's really neat to see. I assume that this store will eventually have to move out of the mall, and I hope that they can thrive wherever they end up. Over here we have a gym, and I've been seeing a lot of gyms opening up in dead malls. I guess it's just kind of an easy thing to set up, and it seems like they do pretty well. But I guess that's a sign that the mall's not doing well overall. Now in this spot, they have one of those axe throwing places, but this used to be a Suncoast motion picture company. Do you see these panels here? Definitely an old feature of that store. And they have a dollar store. These places are so cool. You always find interesting stuff when you go in there. This hallway leads down to the management office, and all along the wall here they have these posters with different historical events from the local area. I love it when malls do stuff like this, and it just illustrates the importance of a mall having ties to the local community. I find it really interesting that Brunswick Square has managed to stick around for as long as it has. With so many malls closing and being demolished, Brunswick Square managed to make it to 2025. It makes me really sad to think about the proposed overhaul in the 80s that never came to be. If you look up the concept art of what they were proposing to do, this would have been a really beautiful, amazing mall. I wonder if that plan had have come to be if the future of Brunswick Square would have turned out much differently. But I suppose all we can do is just enjoy it for what it was, and hope that the future plans for it turn out to be something worthwhile. And before I make my way back to my car in the parking lot, we'll take one last walkthrough of the JCPenney. JCPenney is a company that has survived many hardships in recent years. In 2020, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and somehow they made it through that and are still open. But I have to say that the locations that I've visited lately have not been looking too good, and this one is no exception. So you'll notice that the floor has just been stripped down to the concrete, and over here they have an entire section just partitioned off, all that floor space not being used. It looks like they're having some roof leaks, and they have this tube set up to collect the water coming through. That's definitely not a good sign. And back here we can see a lot of water damage on these drop ceiling panels. And this was kind of a wild sight. They had this old service desk here, which just looks like they're using it to collect junk and other garbage. Mall department stores were considered to be somewhat high-end, and seeing something like this is just a real sign that they've fallen off hard. So how do you feel about Brunswick Square Mall closing? Are you going to miss it? Do you have any fond memories of this place? Please let me know down in the comments below. As for my own feelings, I'm always sad when a mall closes, but I can kind of see redevelopment being necessary for Brunswick Square. Overall, Brunswick Square just doesn't have enough to offer that can keep it competitive with other malls in the region. I'm honestly impressed that it's managed to stay alive for as long as it has. And as far as the redevelopment of this place goes, I don't think that's going to be anything too exciting or interesting either. I think it's likely going to be mixed-use retail with some luxury apartments added to it, and there's lots of that all over New Jersey already. But I'm glad I was able to visit and document this mall as it was before all these major changes took place, and I want to thank you for coming along with me. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ray, and I make mall and retail videos, but I also make fun travel vlogs focused on nostalgia and anything that's weird and quirky. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to join me on more adventures like this one in the future. If you'd like to support the channel, I have a Patreon page that has videos that you can't see anywhere else. And with that, we're going to say goodbye to Brunswick Square. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.